And welcome to our live recording of the Elevating IT podcast. I'm your host, Mike Brooks. If you're listening to the recording, welcome. I have with me today some cool dudes. Thank you guys for being here. David Spire, first of all, from NTech in Florida. And you are a partner and the VP of, wait a minute, let me not mess this up, VP and Chief Development Officer at NTech. And Eric Burendorf. I swear, I hope I pronounced your name right, my friend.
Please close enough.
All right, say your name for me, so because I should be embarrassed for not getting it right at this point.
Burendorf.
Yeah. Man. You know, and I've known you long enough. I should be getting your name right by now. So my apologies to you. And Eric is from, and he's been on the show before. He's been with us before. So thank you for being here again. And you have yourself as business and technology strategist, but your company is Evernet. It's your company, correct?
Yeah, I'm the sole owner. We're a small boutique IT company centered in Hartford, Connecticut, but we're starting to reach out. We just picked up a client in Seattle, a new client in Tampa, so we're starting to cover all of the country at this point.
Oh, right on. And David, you are in Florida. What's the, me and Eric are both in Connecticut. So my favorite question.
Oh, Mike, I forgot that you're in Connecticut too. You're down in Greenwich?
I'm in Southbury. So I'm halfway between you and Greenwich. I'm closer to you then. But David is in Florida. So my favorite question for folks in Florida is, what's the temperature?
Well, today it's very cold for Florida. We're in the high 40s, but it's yesterday I think it was almost 80. Yeah, we're struggling down here. The struggle is real in January.
Don't get me started. I just keep telling my wife, like, why do we live here?
It was so cold yesterday. It was painful to be outside.
I'm born and raised in Connecticut, essentially. And I even went to college in Burlington, Vermont, which is like an hour away from the Canadian border. And if I could do it all over again, I would have gone to college in Miami or Austin or San Diego.
Oh my goodness. I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Well, guys, thanks for being on today with me. I've spoken to y'all before, and the idea here is to just talk business today, talk about what's going on. I think, the beginning of the year here is a great time to kind of reset a little bit and talk about what is going on as we go into the new year, which is a crazy, I don't know. I feel like we're in COVID part 2. Everybody's kind of going back into lockdowns, sort of. And we have the bright side of, me and David were talking before about the vaccines coming out. So, there's some positivity. We're into 2021, but it feels like we're back again where we were in March in a way, or April. So I'd love to hear from you guys and just chat about business in general. So let me just start. I'll throw this out there. Whichever one of you guys wants to kind of pick up the ball and take it, is just how was your year end? How did things go for the year of 2020?
I'll take a back seat, Dave, if you want to. Right. You want to lead?
Sure. I'll dive on this one. So tail end of the year for us was super strong. We struggled through the second quarter, I think, as most people did. But we continued to stay positive through it and continue, especially from a sales and marketing perspective, put the work in every day. And for us, we were able to finish the year and still hit our revenue targets, which was we're very grateful for, needless to say. And we were able to have really strong client retention as well. And so I think that was probably our biggest concern early on, is what's it going to look like? What's the downstream impact as it relates to retention? I think that was our biggest win and surprise as it relates to finishing out the year strong.
For us, it was like it's kind of like 2010, 2012, kind of all over again. after the recession of 2008, because we're a tertiary service. The way the money flows is you've got the consumer. The consumer spends, buys professional services. Our client base is predominantly professional services, doctors, lawyers, things like that. So at least in 2008, for example, the consumer ran out of money somewhere around 2008, 2009. There's a little bit of a lag. And then when they run out of money, they stop spending on services. Then there's a little bit of a lag, and then the services stop buying services. So being, again, that tertiary service provider. I remember it was like August 2012, July, we were just jamming. And then August 2012, it's like the phone stopped ringing or something. Fortunately, we didn't experience that. And I don't know yet if we haven't hit the lag yet. I know, I was watching the airline industry really closely all year, seeing if that was going to be kind of a bellwether as to what the economy was going to do and that sort of thing. So going into March, we had some clients that, they wanted to hit the pause button. They wanted to suspend services or just pause. And, it's not that it wasn't in their best interest. So we explained that it really wasn't in their best interest because, the administrative costs and all these things. And we ended up being right, and they ended up resuming. So a lot of words to say, we held on to our client base because they were still holding on too. So our year I don't want to say our year was good because it was a shitty year. For everybody, it was hard just emotionally, what we're all going through. But from a business perspective, I think we're all kind of holding on. The question I have is, what's the next quarter going to look like? What's the next 2 quarters going to look like? If these vaccines don't come down fast enough, if things don't start resuming to some level of normalcy, I just wonder if that lag that I described that happened in 2012 after the recession, is that going to be our fate,
Interesting. David, I want to throw it back to you. And if you have any comments on that, please feel free. But, it brings up a good point where we had to all probably deal with, and I'm sure you dealt with it, David, as well, clients who are coming to you and want to cut services. I think everybody dealt with that, whether your client needed to or not. I think this whole thing made people think about, do I need to do this? Do I need to expand? Do I need to control? What do I need to do? So how did you deal with that when that happened to you? And how do you have a new plan to deal with it going forward?
Yeah, I to one of Eric's points, I think that geography has a lot to do with it, right? So people being in different states, different locations, and how businesses are dealing with it, and I think how the general public is dealing with it probably is a pretty big indicator in all of this. For us early on, we immediately tried to figure out how do we create a hibernation type of plan for our clients, as Eric just mentioned, to put them on pause. We did have a couple take advantage of it, but as soon as they were able to, and they were in industries that were shut down, which you had no choice at that point. You had to try and work with them because
what else do you do? Right.
So, and we want to sustain it and weather the storm with them. And so as soon as they were able to resume business as the new normal, if you will, obviously we were there to help go through that. So in Florida right now, again, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, all indications are that the businesses are going to remain open the way that they have been over the last several months. Although I did hear a news article or story this morning that the cases in Florida spiked yesterday to an all-time high. So who knows, right? I mean, it's hard to say. Right now, I believe everybody down here is relatively bullish on continuing to do what we're doing, but certainly everyone is careful and aware. And so, however we're all choosing to run our businesses, whether it's, everybody's working remotely or a permissive work from the office or everybody back in the office. I know that for us, most of our clients are relatively whole staff, back in the office, but they've made adjustments to do it in a more socially responsible way. we'll say. And so we're attacking it that same way, right? So we're meeting them where they're at, and I think that it's to Eric's point also, it's been tough because of the administrative changes that we've had to put in place and focus on things that are very reactive, and how we're dealing with family matters we've never had to deal with before, and contact tracing, and how many people we can have on site to work on projects together, and how we deal with all of that, not just for our team but for our partners' teams as well, and our clients. And so it's been a massive distraction just on how you do the right thing day to day, beyond
distraction. I mean, without sounding insensitive, that is from a business administration standpoint. That's a perfect word for it.
Yeah.
In fact, if I can add to that, not to cut you off, Mike, before you called me for this meeting, my HR manager said, "Hey," and I'm, part of me is embarrassed that we're doing it now, but part of our credo is to we don't try to act emotionally to a lot of, we deal with urgency every day, every week. We have somebody calling us with their hair on fire. So we really have a culture of being the calm voice of reason, and, to manage the challenges that we're all facing, and what our clients face from crypto locker and ransomware. And I mean, fortunately not often in that vector, but you get what I'm saying. So my HR manager emails me, messaged me, says, "Hey, there's a sense on the team that, our team is so great that they really faced the on-site service calls and projects and all the work that we had to do on site. They really faced it with real courage, is really what I'd say. My team they're just an amazing bunch of people. But after almost a year into it, we're 9 months into this. They said we just had a client request an on-site call, and immediately prior to the call said, "Hey, just so you know, somebody's out with COVID."
Oh.
So it just, it's scary. It's always scary, but when somebody says, like, oh, you're going to be passing through the room, or, it's that fear, so my HR manager said, "Hey, I don't know about you, David, but we haven't had a COVID exposure survey that we were sending to our clients prior to dispatching resources. Are you guys doing that?"
We're not. No.
So my HR manager said today, like, they're just great. And if I would have pushed back on it and said, we're not going to do that to our clients, or it's too bureaucratic, or we've all had them, sense, and everybody can lie on, it's a total, volunteer kind of, it's elective, to be honest, on them or whatever. So I thought about it, but in support of my team, I made the decision to implement a mechanism where, we use a ticketing system that allows us to communicate and kind of document everything really orderly. So I was just before this call, I was building out that kind of questionnaire to send to our clients before an on-call service
happens. That sounds fair. I mean, there's nothing unfair about
no, and in fact, that's the language that I put in the email. I said, maybe not fair, but it was like, thank you for your patience and understanding, while this temporary measure, while we ask you to participate in this temporary measure. And, we went through a major transformation as a company and a culture over the last 5 years, and the clients we have are so great. They're so part of our effort for them. We had a much larger client base 5 and more years ago, because the culture back then was, well, everybody's a potential client. And I made the concerted decision about 4 or 5 years ago that really wasn't working for us. We really, there really is a truth to more isn't better. So I don't know if you're following. I'm being diplomatic and gentle in how I'm saying. So anyways, the client base that we have really partner with us well and engaging with us. communicating with us and understanding kind of where we're coming from to help them.
Interesting. Now, so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's important right now. You know, as we're going we're in the beginning of January. What are your plans? And David, I'll kind of share. Eric shared a little bit about this already, but David, what are you putting in place to make sure that, you know, your employees are protected that have to go on site? Because you have to go on site. I mean, that's the deal. It's like I came off the road. I've been at my house. I don't have to go anywhere. So
you're in gym shorts right now, aren't you?
I'm not in any shorts, Eric. You don't want to even know. You don't want to know what I'm in. Yeah, you're lucky I came out of hair and makeup on time. So, David, we talked a little bit about this before we went live here, and maybe you can bring up some of the stuff we were talking about. But what are you going to do going forward? Keep your people safe. Keep, you know, and make sure that your clients are protected, and you know, from your state is different than our state, how you're doing things. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I'm not leading the charge on this, thank goodness. But what I do know is, you know, our leadership team is very active in monitoring CDC guidelines, which are changing frequently. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a component of it that we do internally, just as a course of everyday business, making sure that both our in-office workers, which we're probably at about 30% capacity that are back at the office at any given time. But we just had this come up in our quarterly planning session yesterday about, as people start to come back a little bit more, maybe changing shifts and rotating, just to limit the amount of time that there is potential exposure, right? In a tight workspace. One of the things that we did is we leveraged the downtime, and we've got two offices. So we have one in Fort Myers and one in Bradenton, which is just south of Tampa. So we're on the west coast of Florida. Our Fort Myers office, we had really outgrown, and we used the opportunity to renovate the whole thing. So we gutted it and changed the entire footprint of it to make it much more open air. And along with that, redid the desk systems and put the dividers up that we needed to do. So it was perfect timing for that, because you just really can't shut an office down to do that kind of thing and still sustain business. So it made it really nice to be able to leverage that. So those are a couple of things that we've done. Of course, you know, PPP and proper sanitation and upping our cleaning game and all the stuff that goes along with that. So that's what we're doing internally to protect our team. You know, it's again learning how changes are taking place. You know, what is exposure. You know, to Eric's point, understanding when clients have somebody that has been exposed to it. I think probably one of the biggest, one of the most interesting things that we've experienced is how I think early on it was treated like almost like leprosy. Like if somebody had COVID, like you wanted to, you know, you just didn't know. Now there seems to be a sense of like, I don't even know the right word, like humility and like, oh man, like understanding. There's just like massive understanding down here if it does happen. And, you know, a lot of times it's happening through personal interactions, right? And coming out of the holidays. And so, you know, for us, it's just about awareness. It's about an ongoing conversation about being smart. You know, again, it's such divided views on it. As you know, we've got about 40 people on our team. And so when you get a group of about that size, you get all different walks of life, and you've got some people that don't want to leave the house, and you got other people that think the whole thing's a scam. So how do you make all the people happy all the time? And you just don't. And so we have to, you know, we've been blessed with a wonderful organization and great people, and it's our responsibility to protect them. And so we take it very seriously. And the same goes for our clients. You know, we've got clients that believe this the same way on each end of the spectrum, and we have to meet them where they're at to help them.
What do you do? Like, before I pass it over to you, Eric, I'm just curious, you know, just my mind to get around this, right? Like, because let's say you go into an office with where people are serious about it. They're all wearing masks. It's easy to know what to do, right? You're going to go and you're going to wear masks because you know that they want that. But what about the people who think this is a hoax? You're going into their office and wearing a mask. Are they mad at you? You know, I'm just curious, you know.
You're playing with fire, Mike.
Like,
Yeah.
here, I mean,
You know,
you're here in Connecticut.
To answer your question, a lot of it depends on the people. I actually had a new prospect meeting probably about 3 weeks ago. When we walked in, no one it was a law firm, and none of the folks in the law firm had any masks or anything on. We walked in with them on, and they said if you'd like to remove them, you can. And it was they understood that, like. And so for us, once we got into the room and there was plenty of space, we did take them off because it was a little bit easier to talk and understand. Had it been tight quarters, we wouldn't have, because I knew I was going back to the office and I didn't know where those people had been. And so, again, I think so much of it goes back to the education and the understanding of who you're with, who you're around, what your environment looks like, and it's more of a social obligation at this point, not so much a business obligation. I don't believe it's. Because
I'm almost curious. Like, I'm thinking of it from as a salesperson, right? Like, you want to make the other person comfortable. There's certain things you want to do. You want to mirror all these sales techniques, and it comes down to getting them to like you. And the last thing you want to do is go in there and go, you have to wear a mask, or you're wearing a mask and I don't like you because I don't believe in this.
This is a hot potato that we're all juggling.
And I think people who are listening, this is good stuff, because I'm sure somebody's listening to this or watching this going, I want to make sure I have the right tools in my toolbox, so.
I mean, in such a wild, I'll say last year, and for some maybe might say last 4 years, the country, I don't think anybody would deny that the country has been very divided in a lot of ways. But in a lot of ways, this kind of awful thing kind of unites us in a way. And the irony is that to maintain distance. So it's like a wordplay that just goes around and around. But we're all managing this hot potato. We're all. I'm about to alienate my clients prior to dispatching a technician on site by saying you need to fill out the survey. I mean, we're all. Some people think it's a pandemic. Some people think it's a conspiracy. Some people think it's not happening. And I'm the first to admit that in a lot of ways I went through kind of that educational evolution as well. I mean, I remember the early days. I remember thinking, come on, this is nothing more than a cold or a flu. Sure, the comorbid, that's the word that they use, that the really susceptible and vulnerable people that are passing away from this disease are people with comorbidity, which is more than one disease or life-threatening disease, if overweight and diabetes or something, So at first it was like, well, of course, I mean, the sick and the weak would die from, I mean, they were doing that, people die from the flu, and then you go through the evolution, and we all went through this summer, and the learning, and then you're trying to parse the information, and all the while we're trying to manage offices and staff and client relationships. I celebrate, for one. I mean, I'm a germaphobe in my own right, and I'm thrilled that the handshake is dead. I call it hand sex, like that. The fact that we don't have to have hand sex with strangers now, just to be professional. Like, I'm really hoping the bow, takes hold, or just like the professional nod or whatever. I don't do the elbow. I don't know who came up with the elbow, because you have to close your proximity even more than a handshake in order to tap elbows. So when somebody throws an elbow at me, they're getting the little fist bump on their elbow, and then the awkward looks that you get from that. So it's.
I like the bow. I did martial arts my whole life, and we always bowed, and you look person in the eye, you bow. I think that's always very respectful. I always loved that. So I'm voting for the bow to come.
Yeah, I do the oh God, what's the Robert Redford movie where he was the mountain man, and there's a GIF that circulates where he does this kind of like appreciative nod, like I'm not doing the karate bow, but I'm doing kind of like, I don't know, the American businessman bow or whatever. It's like, I see you, I acknowledge you, I smile, and and my nod says, please don't close any more than 6 feet to me. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Look of understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, but fortunately, and listen, I'm a pilot, so I fly in close proximity, and I was doing some flying during this, and we were thinking the masks, and it was earlier days when some people thought that the masks were kind of a fakeness or a fake component to this, or an unnecessary component to it. But like I said, it's a hot potato we're all dealing with. So no matter where you fall on the spectrum, if you don't believe in masks and somebody's approaching you with a mask on, it's at minimum a social courtesy to echo, I would think anyways, to mirror or respond or match the distance high bar, is it? Or the high bar, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It's just a weird one, if you have like, if you, Eric, have a health problem and you're wearing a mask and you're very concerned with it, and you feel now you are compelled to sit in a sales opportunity, or you're with a client who is totally the other end of the spectrum and is insulted by your mask wearing, you're putting yourself in harm's way technically by removing the mask, right? And that now it's you're not just dealing with a courtesy thing. That's interesting.
Mike, I can't speak for everybody else, but I've made all of the decisions in my life so far that I would never sacrifice my integrity, my life, or my family for a sale.
Yeah.
You know,
so it goes back to what Eric, sorry to cut you off, what you're saying earlier, right? I mean, I think we all want to do business. One of my criteria used to be they got to be nice, right? I don't care how much money you want to spend. If they're not nice, like we work too hard to deal with people that aren't nice, and in a whole different way.
That links to my earlier,
yeah. It really, I mean, I remember years ago, I had somebody come to me and ask me like, "What's one piece of business advice as a startup?" And I was like, "The hardest thing you're ever going to have to do is say no to people early on. Don't chase the dollars, because you'll get married to them, and you'll promise yourself, when I replace that client with a new one that's nicer, I'll get rid of the bad one." And it's really hard to do once you've created that.
That is culture. Exactly the thing that I was talking to. That's the point that I was talking to.
Yeah. And so I think that in a different way, like it's converting that, like if I had somebody that was, if one of our staff or a sales rep or even myself, if we walked into something and they felt very compelled because they just believe strongly in wearing the mask, or their family members have, a weakened immune system and, more susceptible to the illness. And somebody said, I'm not interested in doing business with you because you wouldn't take your mask off during the meeting. I'd say, let's not even take a second meeting, right? Thank you so much for letting us know that.
Thank you for putting it in so many words.
Yeah. You saved me a lot of trouble, because like,
you're not the kind of person.
And listen, I built my business. I'm the sole owner of my company. I built my business starting with client one. So I know when you have one client and you go to your second sales meeting with your second potential client, you're about to double the size of your business. So I understand what that means. And I for whomever may be watching this saying, you don't understand, like I'll risk my, maybe I have made some risk, I know I've risked it all so many times on this damn business, but not, when it comes to, like I said, my integrity or my family or my health, I think that's where the line is. I wish anybody else who feels compelled to take their mask off when they don't want to, or they may feel like they're putting themselves at risk for a sale, I feel sorry for that person who feels that they might have to do that.
Yeah. And I think, Mike, what you were saying earlier, right? It's a sensitivity to be able to read the room. So where we used to read the room to say, hey, what's this person's personality style? Are they a high D, a high S, a high C? The matching and mirroring, understanding, hearing the words that they're saying, truly listening to them. I think this is a whole new way of listening to the environment, understanding, pay attention when you walk in. What are the other colleagues inside that organization doing? Is it just the person out front, or is it everybody? Is this, what's the temperature of the prospect or the client on the subject? And it's something that we need to train all of our people to pay attention to.
I would submit, though, that we're, as professionals, we're all kind of tuned to doing that naturally anyways, right? I mean, huh?
You hope.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have a surf shop as a client, right, David, your guys are not going in flip-flops and a tank top, right?
Right.
That's cool. This was, I didn't expect to talk about the hot potato topic, but I think this is actually, now that we brought it up and we talked about it, I think it was a really good topic to talk about, because I can imagine if I'm not going out and putting myself in those situations doing face-to-face stuff. I know in the MSP world, you guys have no choice. You have to do a technical assessment to sell your service. You can't do a remote technical assessment, right? And correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I haven't met an MSP yet who can't do technical assessment.
I mean, we're doing a lot remotely, Mike. We're doing a lot remotely.
Talk about that then. Share what you're doing, because I think that's valuable.
I think, I march to the beat of my own drum. I always have. It's just the kind of person I am. I don't think of us as a mainstream or traditional MSP. The term kind of makes me cringe, to be honest with you. We're a managed services provider, but the way in which we implement that and execute that for our clients is not what our competitors are doing. It's not the standard playbook that the typical MSP does. Because I apologize if this is not meant to be an insult to anybody who might be, it's just some of the MSP stuff is I think a little predatory, a little built on the FUD of the thing, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that's just not my approach. So, we have a client that, is out of state or away from us geographically. We're fully capable. Yeah, we can't tell if somebody put a coffee maker on the server, which I always use that as a joke, because we have a bunch of small businesses, and back when the Microsoft small business server was running, everybody's business, I literally remember we went into an office in between our last services, and somebody had put the coffee maker on top of the server. So no, we can't do that. Of course, all the physical things you need to do, you can't do. But if you are, in our case, we're getting called because the former vendor has dropped the ball, or has not under communicated, or for whatever reason the client feels like they have to move on. So we get called, and they kind of do. A lot of them come and say, "Okay, do you need to come and do the walkthrough and do all this stuff?" I'm like, "No, we really don't. We just, we can do a whole audit from a logical sense remotely, and we only dispatch when and I don't want to get too specific because it's some of our secret sauce, but in short, I would say we don't march to that typical MSP drum. You know what I mean? So no, we have clients who call us and we say, "Oh, we can get a full picture of your entire network and situation, take control of it, secure it, support it, and yeah, when we need to dispatch, we'll dispatch."
And David, can you do remote technical assessments?
I think we can. We choose not to most of the time. For us, we've got a smaller geographic footprint that we're focused on. So we stay relatively close. I mean, we do have clients like Eric. We have clients out of the area. 100% of them have their main operation inside of our geography, and so whereas I used to say our furthest west was Los Angeles. It's pretty far distance from Florida, but the core of their operations sat here, and so we only had to figure out how to address the last mile. So, to your question, Mike, for us, the technical assessment is much about developing the relationship as it is about the technical finds, and so we do choose to still do that on site and not remote, even though we could do it remote. Where we have made adjustments to it is it's given me an opportunity to really enforce and impress on my salespeople that they need to earn the right to get that resource on site, where it used to be easier for them to have a weak qualification process and say, "Yeah, let's do the assessment," because it felt like it was the next logical step, but they hadn't done their piece yet to earn that right yet. And so if there's been any benefit of all this, it's forced them to do their job better and to earn the right to, because I say to them, every time we roll an engineer out on site, we're putting one more of our teammates at risk, right? So let's make sure if you're going to win this, you better win it if we're going to send them out. And so we're doing them, but we're certainly doing them with less frequency. And really, we're asking the question: do you really need this assessment to win the deal? And in a lot of cases, to Eric's point, we don't have to come in, as an industry. Like, listen, colleagues, peers in the service provider industry, you don't have to scare people into doing business with you. You just don't. And so I think that the assessment is a great way of creating a roadmap and showing them how you're different, how you can identify things, but it's not about trying to scare. And most of the time they're calling us, right? I mean, if we're knocking on doors, we're really not compelling people to take meetings with us, to do business with us, just because we like to think we're funnier and better looking, but they're usually not buying because of that, right? And so there's a pre-existing condition that's triggered them to reach out to you or to engage in that meeting at that time, even if we did make that call. In the technical assessment, it should be developing the roadmap to inform your strategy and your plan and how you're helping them consult. It's not about like, look at what a terrible job your current provider is doing.
I'm so inspired to hear you say all of that, because sometimes, David, I read I read, and I have various peer groups and things that I'm observing, and it's really nice to hear you say that, because that hasn't really been the playbook for a lot of years. It's been that predatory, hostile, get in there. And I have colleagues that work for competitors who are close personal friends of mine who still employ some of those tactics. And it's just not, I'm never the hard sale. I'm just not. But I need to get paid for my time too. That's the other thing I was going to say, is that a technical assessment, we get paid to do those. So we don't do those for free, because the reason being is that is paid knowledge from us. You're buying our knowledge. I can't run a company very long by giving our knowledge away for free. And that's the reality of that. So those technical assessments that we do, they're paid. And what the prospective client can do is they can take those technical assessments and they can use that as the guidebook to start our relationship, or they can take that to hold it up against another technical assessment they may have gotten for free, and say, well, Eric at Evernet, they really have their stuff together, or they look, or they don't. I mean, but one or the other, there's value to that time, and we don't give it away. That's for sure. So
great, love it. All right, guys. So we're about to wrap up.
Come on, let's not wrap. I can do this all day, Mike.
I got it. Hey, we're not doing this for free either. Well, we are doing it for free, but we got to give people a reason to come back and listen again. So we're gonna do part 2, part 3, part 5. I mean, because you guys are great. Eric, you've been on a couple times. David, this is your first time, but I got to have you on again because you're great. So here's what I want to do to wrap it up. I want you to give your best piece of advice to your fellow peers, some words of encouragement, whatever you want to do. Just as you're going forward, as we're all going forward into 2021, trying to make it a great year. What do you recommend for your MSP peers? I'll start with David.
Oh boy, I got to go first. All right, my best piece of advice. Goodness, I'd like to say, as a community, let's stop trying to compete on price. Drive value, right?
Great.
Drive value. Because in my experience, people don't understand how to buy our services. They don't understand how to appreciate our services, and so what they try and do is they try and distill it down and let's get everything equal, and then we make a decision based on price and price alone, and ultimately. While we all do the same types of services, to Eric's point, we all deliver them differently. We all have our secret sauce. Figure out what your value proposition is, and don't just take your next closest competitor's proposal and shave 20 points off of it and think that you're going to do somebody a great job, because we've seen that in our market. And you want to talk about predatory, it's ridiculous, right? So be creative as an industry, guys. Like, quit stealing each other's ideas and just, be creative.
I'll say to that the relationship piece for us, I always tell my people that the technology stuff is easy. I mean, I've been an engineer. I'm probably the biggest nerd you guys would ever know, but I just love technology. I love business, and I love the marriage of the two. so me saying the technology piece is the easy piece may just be because it comes easy to me, but for us, we're a team of technologists, and the technology is the easy piece. What I tell my people, and they well know now, that we're really in the business of relationships. So when we go in or when I communicate with a prospective client, I feel so comfortable in speaking to them. I started implementing an onboarding fee, new client onboarding fee last year. And that was just like the final evolution of that change I was describing earlier. And in that it's only $250 is the onboarding fee. And it offsets some of the administrative and sales time that I spend on building the relationship. But it's really kind of a bellwether to how the client is going to value our relationship. $250 is, to our clients and to me, it's not really a meaningful sum, really. In the our relation, we have relationships that have been going on for 15 years with our clients. We've made a lot of money with, but it really is a bellwether to say how they're going to value our relationship. So, to your point, David, the clients or the prospective clients and that would look at our proposal and then look at maybe the same thing with 20% shaved off of it, I'm happy to let that client go. I'm happy to let that discount shopper go to that person, because I was that person early on in my career and this project that I call my company. So what I do is I try to connect with people, because our pricing is what I call market rate. We probably price competitive with you, David. And I actually publish our pricing on our website now, which is every salesperson's nightmare. I can't tell you how many people tell me, like, what are you doing? Stop doing that. I said, no, I'm building, and I've always built my relationships on trust, transparency, and value. So while it may not serve me to tell my competitors to do that, if I'm forced by Mike to give advice to Mike's community of other MSPs, which are my colleagues too, I can only say that I've had success in building relationships with trust and transparency in mind.
Great stuff. Well, thanks, guys. I'll give my piece of advice, and I wrote about it on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn, everybody, if you're listening to this. Is don't hunker down. Did a quick article about the difference, asking people if they're hunkering down or doubling down. And I'll tell you what I'm doing in my business, and what I recommend everybody does is double, triple, quadruple down, work harder, do more. If you prospect twice as much, 3 times as much, build your pipeline, talk to more people than you talk to. Don't give up. This is, I think a lot of people are almost caught like they're like a deer in the headlights, right? Don't give up. We're going to get through this, but you got to work hard. So that's my advice for you. And guys, David and Eric, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to have you come back again. Thanks for everybody watching.
David, nice meeting you.
You too, Eric.
All right, everybody. Have a great one.
Have a good weekend, guys.